Thank you so much, Judge, for the great submission. I became aware of you in 2007. I was watching the former president's Zuma case. But thank you for the great detailed submission about your new book. And thanks, Nadia. We're definitely going to support, I think, much for the reasons of social impact programs that you guys are doing. I have perhaps two questions, maybe a little bit indirectly. I think the first one, as a judge, you're almost 79 years old. Most of your age, they're retired. Staying at home, they can say, no, don't worry about the country, it's okay, it's all good. But you're still working, 79 years old man, still working. After the former president's case, you probably have created lots of enemies. How did you manage to keep ahead, focusing on your strengths, not the weaknesses of the enemies? And then secondly is, what was the inspiration behind the creation of this manuscript? Thank you.
You know, I am known for that Zuma judgment, and I think I have got a lot of enemies. And, you know, I don't mind answering the questions about it because, you know, in the law you've got to sometimes look at various levels. You've got to look at whether there was political interference in the prosecution of Jacob Zuma. You've got to look at whether he was guilty of the offences for which he was charged. And then you've got to try and evaluate what you do. Now, what I'm sort of credited with by my enemies is letting Zuma off and the chaos that has occurred since then. Let's blame Nicholson for that. I was actually hearing a procedural point, and it amounted to this. You may recall Shabir Sheikh was charged with bribing Zuma. He was charged, and they didn't charge Jacob Zuma. They were either scared of charging Jacob Zuma, or they thought, what we'll do, we'll charge Sheikh with bribing Zuma, and then there will be pressure on him to resign, or he was thrown out then by President Mbeki. Now, it's very peculiar to charge the person who paid the bribes and not the person who received the bribes. Normally in the law, the person who received the bribes is much more serious culprit. He's the man of influence who gets the bribes. Now, the case I had to deal with was the constitutional issue, which said, if you don't charge a person at the beginning, stage one, that is, charging Sheikh with bribing Zuma, but not charging Zuma. If you later charge Zuma, the Constitution said, you've got to explain to him why you didn't charge him with Sheikh. And you've got to give him a hearing. You've got to say, listen, Zuma, we didn't charge you for these and those reasons. But they didn't give him a hearing, and that's all that I held in that case. I said on 2 occasions in the judgment, I'm not saying that Jacob Zuma is innocent. In fact, if he got bribes from Shabir Sheikh, he's much more seriously involved. All I'm saying is, you must administer the law according to the Constitution. And you must. So I didn't let him off. I decided a procedural point that he should have been given a hearing why he wasn't charged with Shabir Sheikh. And as I said, it's not that he's not, I'm not saying he's not guilty. I'm saying you must just give him a hearing why he wasn't charged with Shabir Sheikh. But it's easy, you know, you'll get enemies for doing that, but it seemed to me that politics was playing a game here. The president at the time was a mortal enemy. That's Thabo Mbeki, was a mortal enemy of Jacob Zuma's, and he was marshalling all the forces to prosecute Zuma. Now Zuma is probably, you know, if anything you read in the paper with the Guptas, probably been a disastrous president. But I'm blamed for that, but all I decided was what I thought was a procedural point in the law. So I've got past that one, have I? Are there smiles around? Am I? Do you want to crucify me now?
And you're making the point that you prosecute without fear
Yes.
or favour.
Now, according to the law, you've got to prosecute without fear or favour. You know, you can't have prosecutors directed by politicians as to who they are to prosecute. And recently, the Supreme Court of Appeal has held that there was massive political interference in the prosecuting authority over the years. So this has taken place, and if you read Stephen Grootes in Daily Maverick, you'll see he said that the political interference with the NPA is the biggest cause of what's gone wrong in this country. Why do you think MK has split away? Why is the country in the failure it is? Because of political interference with the prosecuting authority. So what made me write the book? Was that your second question?
What was the inspiration?
So the inspiration was that we know what a mess this country is in, don't we? I mean, things are pretty bad. And from what you read, it's the Guptas and possibly Zuma. And, you know, we can read all that stuff. We can read all about the corruption there's been. I've got a feeling that Chris Hani would not have been corrupt. I was speaking at one meeting once where they said, if Chris Hani had got into office, do you really think he was that different? He wouldn't have become corrupt? And I like to think there are many who are not corrupt. There are those who are incorruptible. There's even a book about Hani, Lebowski, and Dulcie September, which is called Incorruptible, because the author believed that they were incorruptible. And I believe that the inspiration is that South Africa wouldn't be in the mess it is now if Chris Hani had been allowed to survive. And he, like the other heroes I pointed to, were people who were trying to redistribute the wealth, and they then fell foul of their corporate enemies and the other enemies in the system.